Okay, all right. So this is just like a fallout of the class that we did on Saturday, right? And just like I've said, this is going to be purely hands-on, right? But before I dive into that, I just want to again reiterate on where we are going, right? So so the journey is to be able to automate all our processes, because again, as a DevOps practitioner, right, you need an idea of how all of these processes work manually. And your basic responsibility is to automate all of those processes, right? So that you have a seamless experience whenever you want to release a product to the target environment, right? So I'll take, for example, now, right? This is a programmer over here. This is a programmer over here, right? A programmer is always making changes to a product, right? It's always making changes to a software at every particular point in time. So it makes a commit. So this is a laptop over here. So it makes a commit. Now, a commit is basically just changes. For example, maybe it needs to change the color of the login page from black to blue, right? It makes that changes. And that change itself is called a commit. So it makes the changes to a repository somewhere. This is a repository. Now, a repository is a place where you keep your source code. That's just a simple definition of what a repo is. And I'm just trying to make this illustration as simple as possible, you know, for people that really want to kind of like have a general idea of what it is, you know, to create a CI/CD pipeline, right? So it makes a commit to his files, right? He has made changes to the files, you know, sitting on a repository somewhere. These are all the files, right? Now these files that he has made, and sorry, these commits that he has made, for example, the changes, right? They need to be built. And I'm going to make an instance, right? Let's say, for example, Toyota needs to build a vehicle, right? Toyota needs to sell the latest, let's say, Camry today, right? There are different stages that Toyota, there are different stages that car would have to undergo before it's released to the target environment, right? And the first stage is there will be someone, right, that would document the parts, right, that would document all of the parts that would be required to be able to assemble the vehicle, right? So, for example, that person will have like a document. They will document that, okay, this car will have doors, it will have windows, it will have tires, and all of that, right? So that document will now be taken to the assembly plant. Now, based on the documents that is within, based on all of the requirements that have been written within the documents, right? The person at the assembly plant will now have to build the car, you know, based on all of those requirements, right? He's seeing the mirror, he's seeing the door, he's seeing the tires, and all of that. He will build the components of that car, or he will build that car based on the requirements that are within that document. After building it, right, it takes it outside of the factory. Once it's outside of the factory, someone will need to test drive that vehicle to make sure that that vehicle is roadworthy, right? After testing it, you know, maybe they will take it to the car wash, and then the vehicle will now be ready to be released to the target market or to be released to the customer's premise. So once you have that analogy, right, that analogy itself can be used within the CI/CD pipeline. And as a DevOps practitioner, right, that's the mindset that you're going to have, that first and foremost, I want to be able to document what it is. For example, now they need to create a software that maybe, for example, now we need to release Facebook to the target market. We need to release Facebook to the target environment. What are the requirements that will be needed? Right, guys will sit down and they will document, okay, we need a login page, we need a sign-up page, we need the home page, we need the notification page, and all of that. So all of those requirements will be documented and then taken to the developer. The developer will now be the person that will now build to the specification. It will build to all of those requirements, right? Now, he will write his code, right? You can use any language, you can use Python, you can use .NET, right? After writing that code, right, that code is going to be within the repository. So let us assume that this is the repository over here. This is the repository. It's trying to build Facebook, right? These are all, for example, this can be login page, this can be the sign-up page, this can be, let's say, the notification page and all of that. Now, he has committed all of this code base to this repository. Something needs to build all of this project. Now, building is just making it to be production ready. That is combining all that it needs, right? All that it needs, because right now you can't take all of this that you have. You can't deploy all of this to production. Let's say this is production over here. You can't just take all of this to production. It won't work, right? So something needs to be able to put all of these things in the format that will make it run on production, right? And that thing itself is being built within what we call the CI. So CI is continuous integration. So you get a CI tool. An example of a CI tool is Jenkins. We have Jenkins over here, right? We have TeamCity, right? We have GitLab, right? We have so many of them. We have CircleCI, right? Now, that CI, let us name this as a CI. Now, within this CI, right, you will now document what we call the build steps. So build steps are just instructions that you want to take in order to be able to release, to be able to create what we call a package. So now, the version that is going to run on production itself is called a package or an artifact. So the end result is the package over here. So the end result is a package. So within the CI, you define, all of the instructions. For example, let's say that for this product to be converted to a package, right, you want to specify the different steps that it needs to take. For example, maybe you want to perform scanning over here. You want to scan this code for vulnerability. After scanning, maybe you want to download some other external packages that this is going to need to be able to run. After this step, so this is step 1, this is step 2, this is step 3 over here. Step 3 would have to be, let's say you've downloaded the packages. Step 3 will now be to build that package itself, because let's say, for example, you are building a .NET project. There's something we call building from either a solution file or from a CSproj file, right? All of those dependencies that you need, you specified within the CI. So I'm sure you have been hearing about Jenkins. Jenkins does not do any serious work than just specifying the different steps that it takes. Then maybe the last one can just be maybe to scan again or something. Then at the end of the day, you now get the package file. So this package file can now be in a zip format, right? So this is the CI part, right? Now, within the CI part, it goes to another level again for testing. So this level can be for testing over here. So this package comes here, or the CI pushes that package to another stage here where this package is now tested again, right? It's tested. After this guy has now been tested, right? The artifact is now taken to the production environment and then deployed. So this package, it gets to the production environment and then is now deployed on production. Now, this production environments, right, can vary. For example, you can deploy directly to a server. So this is like a VM or a physical server. This can be a VM or a physical server. You can also deploy to another environment called Docker. So again, can deploy to an environment called Docker. So Docker is just a container. So Docker enables you to deploy within containers, right? You can deploy to a container over here. You can also deploy directly to serverless environments. Once you get to cloud, we'll talk about serverless environments. Serverless environments are those environments that does not really need an OS before they can run, right? So, so part of serverless environments could be Azure Functions, it could be, different serverless environments that we have on Azure and AWS, right? So these are serverless environments as well. You could also deploy to Kubernetes. So Kubernetes is just an environment that helps you to manage different Docker containers. So for example, you have deployed to Docker over here, right? Let's say, for example, now you now want to deploy to different Docker environments. Maybe like you have more than 20 Docker instances. Now, this man here, Kubernetes, it helps you to be able to orchestrate, or it helps you to be able to manage all of those Docker environments. Now, the reason why I'm just trying to paint this picture is for you to know why we need a server, or for you to know why we need an environment. And that is why we started by creating a physical server, right? We started by creating a VM. So now, once you have that concept, whenever we're now talking about, okay, server, Docker, serverless environments, Azure environments, Kubernetes, Docker, and all of that, at least you can have like an idea of what it is we're talking about. Now, the second thing that you need to understand is Ansible. Where does it come in? What are those tools that will help me to be able to because this package that I'm seeing here, right? You need a tool to be able to deploy that package. For example, let's say this package needs to run on IIS. You will not want to come into this server directly and then start configuring IIS manually. For example, this package needs to run on Apache. You don't need to manually configure Apache for you to be able to run all of this package itself. That is where the concept of Ansible comes in. So Ansible is just a configuration management tool that you define, to prepare your environments for deployments. So within your Ansible file, something that they call playbook. Within your Ansible playbook, you are defining that once you get to this target environment, please, Mr. Ansible, configure IIS for me, right? Make sure that the IIS is running on port 80. Make sure that, yes, IIS, has port 80 opened, right? IIS has maybe like port 8080 opened and some other environmental variables that you want configured, right? So you configure that using Ansible. You can also use another tool called Puppet, right? Puppet can also be used to configure your environment to make sure that my environment is ready. I have the needed packages to run, right? You can also use another tool called Chef, right? So with Chef, You can check for chef. You can also use that to be able to prepare your environment. Now, confusion now comes in again. Okay, where do I use Terraform? Right now, Terraform is within your CI/CD pipeline. Now, this is the CI part and this is the CD part. And that is where the concept of CI/CD comes into play. There are two different environments. So CI is the building part over here, while CD is like the deployment part over here. So the infusion, right? So what makes CI and CD to be infused is what we call triggers. And once you get to CI/CD, we would talk about that itself. So some environments can only have CI, while some environments will have CD, right? So now Terraform, where does Terraform come into play? Now, Terraform is saying, or you are saying that this package, it needs to be deployed to an environment. That environment is specified within a file. So within that file, you are writing the file to say that, please provision Docker container for me. Install version 20.03. Make sure that this thing is running, or you can say that, please install Docker for me, right? You are now saying that after Terraform, install Docker for me. After installing Docker for me, Mr. Ansible, make sure that you configure port 80 to be opened on that Docker that Mr. Terraform has provisioned for me, right? After doing that, right, this package will now deploy on that environment. So what is happening is that you are kind of like informing this pipeline what to do beforehand. So meaning this environment does not exist, right? You're not saying that before taking this package to this environment, Mr. Terraform, please create a serverless environment for me. Mr. Terraform, please create a Docker image for me. Mr. Terraform, please create an EC2 instance on AWS for me. After doing that, you will now tell Mr. Ansible, based on what Mr. Terraform has done, please configure this environment to these specifications. And after that, CD now pushes this package, and that is how it gets deployed. Am I making sense? Guys, am I making sense?
Yeah,
it's making sense,
boss.
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, good. So now, the reason why I'm just taking you through all of this is that you need to know the manual way of doing things. Very, very important. Very, very important. Please learn the manual way of doing things so that once it now comes to automation, you are now able to interpret that manual thing that you've learned, and then you are now able to automate it. That is why we are going through all of these rudimentals. So having known that, let us go straight into practicals on how to, let's say, deploy an IaaS application on the server, and then basic, I call them hacks, basic hacks that you need to know as a DevOps practitioner. Basic hacks, like those are just part of the things that I need to know. Okay, so this is my server. I just have to quickly spin up this server on Azure. Okay, sorry, there's a lot of sense. Okay, does that mean you write a script on Terraform to do all of this? Yes. So once we get to Terraform, I will show you how all of these are done on Terraform. Very simple technique where you write your Terraform providers, you specify where you want to deploy to, be it Azure, EC2, or it could also be on a physical box itself. So once we get to Terraform, maybe in the next few weeks, I will show you how all of this is done. All right, so this is my server that I just had to quickly spin up on Azure. Now, again, I would advise that please don't be tempted to quickly run to AWS or Azure to just quickly go and spin up. That is why we need you guys to do that on your Oracle VirtualBox. Do it the rough way, because you might be working in a UK company that they've not even gone cloud, right? All their infrastructure is on premise. So we now say because of that, you'll not be able to set up your CI/CD pipeline. No, that is why we need you guys to set up on your VirtualBox. Make sure that you have a functional Windows Server 2016, 2019, whatever version that you have running, set it up and play around with it, right? So again, we'll just talk about just the basic acts that you need to know. First and foremost, once you log on to any Windows server, I'm sure that Sean covered that during our last class. The first thing that comes up is this fine window here. It's called the Server Manager. And what does the Server Manager do? The Server Manager's function is to provide you with the needed tools that you need, right? So this is just like the armory, you know. Once you go to, what's it called? Once you go to the barrack, right? There's a place where they call the armory. That's where you have all of the things you need for war, right? You have your guns, you have your knives, you have bullets and all of that. So this is like the armory where, you know, the things that you need to fire, they're all here, right? So that is what the Server Manager does. So I'm just using all of these terms so that you can understand this thing very well, right? You can understand it very well. So within the Server Manager, you can configure what we call roles, right? So roles are like, okay, I need a gun, I need bullets, I need sword, I need whatever, you know, to be able to go to war. So you need to add your roles. Just click on here, add your roles, right? There's a long story here. This will help you to install role services, whatever. Just know that this is like, I want to prepare my server for war, right? So you click on next. This is telling you that you select, you know, the installation type. Just click on next, right? Now, this is telling you that you should select a server from the server pool. Now, you can have several servers, maybe like 20 servers here, and you can now select the actual server. For example, now my server is test2, right? I don't need to select that. And then click on next. Now, what do you have here? Now, these are your guns. These are your knives. These are your bullets that you need, and these are roles, right? And they perform different function, right? Now, this first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Active Directory, they are the different roles that you need to create what we call ADDS, Active Directory Services, right? Now, what does that do? That helps you when it comes to authentication, when it comes to logging into a network. Different banks today, right? They have what we call a domain. A domain is just like a secluded network to say that before you log on to any computer in any branch of a bank, right, you need to be authenticated. I'm logging in, they will ask me for my username and password. Your username and password is saved on an Active Directory somewhere within the bank's data center, right? So you will need some tools to be able to help you with authentication, to be able to make sure that this Mr. Alex that is connecting is actually our customer. And is his password, like, is his password correct? The password that he provided, is it still the same password that we have within our database? So this is just authenticating you to a particular database somewhere. That is beyond the scope of this class, right? So all of those authentication, you know, you hear about domain, my domain account, right? Those are just objects. We call them objects that helps you to connect and authenticate to a network. They call it domain, right? And that is where you hear something like, let's say, Microsoft.com. Microsoft.com is a domain, and their staff, right, before they can log in, they need to log in with their username and password, right, on Microsoft's database. So those things that help Microsoft to be able to create that authentication system is called ADDS. And that is where this guy is coming. These guys, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So all of these guys are AD objects. The next one, device self attestation. You can read on that. Dhcp. What does it do? This is a tool that looks like a gun that is used to create what we call dynamic host control protocol. And what it does is that it assigns IP addresses to you automatically. A bank can have 5,000 systems. They can have 5,000 workstations today, right? Now, if if the IT of that bank does not have the capacity to start assigning IP address manually, right? You can just make this server a DHCP server, right? You now authorize it that Mr. DHCP server, any computer that wants to join our network, that want to join our domain, please give him an IP address that is unique, that does not exist anywhere. That is where this DHCP server comes into play. The next one is the DNS server. DNS server is domain name server. Okay, I have a question here. Active Directory domain service. Okay, yeah. It can also be called Active Directory services as well. So always available after class. Okay, yep. I think we are good. Okay, so yes, so DNS server is sorry. So sorry, just a minute. Okay, so sorry, someone was just trying to call me. Yep. So DNS server is domain name system, right? Which is just used for name translation, right? It's used for name translation. So what that means is that, and we're going to also demonstrate that here. So what that means is that you have an IP address, right? Let's say 10.1.1.1, right? So you have several IP addresses. You have another one, 10.2.3.4. You cannot cram all of those IP addresses. You need to be able to convert all of those IP addresses to a name. For example, you can convert it to my name, Dapo dot something, or maybe dapo.me or dapo.com or dapo.dat, right? So that once you now call that dapo.dat, right, based on this DNS that you've configured, it will now translate it to the correct IP address. So this just helps you not to be able to cram IP addresses, but from the machine's perspective, right, it helps the machine to have like a centralized way of keeping information, you know, so to say. So you don't have IP addresses flying everywhere, right? Then we have others. We have Hyper-V. Sean talked about Hyper-V during our last class, and this helps you to be able to create VMs, right? These are machines that run on another machine. So you can have 20 machines running on this server, right? You can have several machines running on a particular host somewhere. So you have network controller, network policy, print. Now, once you are able to grasp everything here, then you are good, you are good when it comes to server administration. But the one we're going to work on today is the IIS services, web server, right? I've actually installed the web server, but it's a very simple logic as well, where once you just select this, click on next, right? You select .NET framework, click on next, and then finish and install. But because I've installed it, I don't want to kind of like waste time in doing that again. And that's part of the assignments that has been given to you. So again, the assignment is install an IIS service and deploy an application on it. And I've now added to that assignment, right? And that would be install a certificate on that server. And I'm going to show you how. Now, let us quickly go on. So I've talked about server manager. Now, another one is, I'm coming back to IIS. We're going to deploy an application on IIS now. But before that, let me just show you some hacks. And the hack number one is, how do I create user on this particular server? Am I the only person that wants to be logging into the server? No, you can have different people. You can have different accounts created on this server to be able to log in. How do you do that? You go to your stats, right click, and go to your computer management. So under computer management, you have several taxes, task scheduler, event viewer, shared folders, local users and groups is where I'm coming. Just click on that. And then you have users over here. You have users and groups. So under users, you have several users. This is me. And these are some default users that have been disabled. So once you see this small icon that is showing like a down arrow, it means that these accounts have been disabled. Now, I need to create Mr. Alex to be able to also log into this system, log on to this server. How do I do that? Just right-click outside, create a new user, and what name should I give it? Alex. You can give Mr. Alex a name, maybe Alex Smith. Its password, you can give it any password, but make sure it's a strong password. All right, so it's telling me that Mr. Alex must change his password, which is best practice, that Mr. Alex must change his password at next logon. I don't want that because this is just, again, just for a test. I'll just disable it. It's saying that Mr. Alex cannot change password. Password never expires. So within a particular environment itself, right? Now, you don't need to do this manually, right? You would only need to do this when you are creating what we call a local account. So a local account is local to this server. But if you want to create Mr. Alex to be able to log on to a server somewhere, you now have to go back to your Active Directory to create an object. And that object is Alex's account details, right? So, but because of test, because I'm just creating on a local server, I'll just say maybe like password never expires. Of course, I'm going to delete this account after now and then create. That's all. But now, Mr. Alex will not be able to log on to this server because it's just a mere server. I need to elevate Mr. Alex to give him more power. What do? I come to group. Under group, so you can see administrator. Right. So what does the administrator group do? It's telling me that administrators have complete and unrestricted access to the computer and domain. So you can see what I was saying, computer and domain, meaning this is the computer, which is local, and domain. Domain is, when you now join this server to a particular domain, set of to be able to share network process and all of that. So there are other rules over here that I can read, but because of time, I just want Mr. Alex to be part of the administrator account here. So what do I need to do? Just double click on administrator and then add. So who do I want to add? I am adding Mr. Alex. So once you add Alex, check names. You can see test2 is the name of this server. And there's now a / Alex there telling me that this is a local account. Very important. So you click on OK, apply, and OK. So what have we done? It means Mr. Alex can connect to this server, right? So now let's connect again to this server. So I will spin up okay, so I want to connect to this server, but this time I want to use Alex. So I don't need to type Alex simply with a password. Now click on OK. So it's coming up. You can see I am logging in as what? Alex. So this server and this server, they are the same thing, though. They are the same thing. Do you understand? So I've logged in as Mr. Alex. So if I want to check the user that log into this server, I don't need to right click, right? Come to Task Manager and then click on more details over here. Then go to users on this tab. Then you can see me. This is Dapo, this server that I've seen up. And then I see Mr. Alex, right? So you can just check the performance of how this server is doing, check the processes that are running. I'll not go into that again. So I'm done. I'll just close Mr. Alex and come back to this user. Click on Mr. Alex and delete it because I'm done with Alex for now. But before I do that, right now, let's say peradventure, Alex, I need to copy a file from Mr. Alex's account, right? We'll have to wait for Mr. Alex to come back, or maybe peradventure, Mr. Alex has been on leave and is unreachable, and I need an important file on Mr. Alex's account. What do I need to do? Right? Because I am admin on this server, I can just go to this PC, go to Windows Drive, And then there's a folder called users, and that is where we have all the users that have been created, or all the users that have logged into the server. So I'll click on users, and then you can see Alex here. So click on Alex, so you can see Alex's information. But eventually, maybe Alex now tells me that, Mr. Dapo, I'm not around, but check on my desktop. You'll find your file there. So just click on desktop, and this is Mr. Alex's desktop. Okay, moving on. We'll look at another important attribute that you need to know as a DevOps practitioner, right? And that is event viewer.
Hello, Odi. I have a question.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Okay. Does it mean that where AD comes in, maybe when Alex wants to remote into the server, like a remote desktop, maybe he wants to log into the server from a different machine outside where he's staying, then he needs to get an IP of this particular server and LAN login with the AD has been added as part of the domain of the organization. Just want to get where this AD will apply and all this.
Okay, so now the place the AD applies is just see the AD as a big network, right? See it as a big network. Now within that network we have.
Can I take it? Sorry.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so like you mentioned, there are two categories of users on the system: the local user and you talk about the domain users. So like you mentioned, the domain is just see it as a building, a big building for a company. That is an official building. Just like every organization have their headquarters. You get, so see that as this is our headquarters, that is the domain. And for you to enter into that domain, you need access. Do you get? You need access. You can't just go into internet headquarters and say, I want to enter. You have to, of course, they will ask you, who do you want to see? Are you a staff? Where's your ID card? So use ID card to go into it. That is for the domain. But when it comes to now local user is just on the server. For the domain user is across all objects. It was telling you about objects. We have three categories of objects. There is the user object, there's device object, and the computer object. The group object. So device is your servers, all the computers you have. Then users, all the users on the domain. Then you have groups, different groups, admin group, administrative group, and the likes. So the local user that was created, this Mr. Les, you can only log on this server alone. But if you are a domain user, if we have other servers, if we have other computers, other workstations like clients, a domain user can log on to any of those servers. You can log on to any of those PCs. So let's say there are other, apart from this server, that has also provisioned like 4 other servers. If he has provisioned Alex on the AD, Alex, if the permission is given, Alex will be able to log on to all those 4 servers. But if Alex is just a local user that was created, he cannot log on to all those servers. He can only log on to the server where he was created locally, meaning you are local. You are not outside. You just stay in here. You can't go outside anywhere. Okay, just like your visa, just like our passport visa. You know, when you have the West Africa, if you are in West Africa, you can go to any country in West Africa. But for you to enter another country outside of West Africa, then you need a license. So you are local to West Africa. Then when you're not going beyond outside of West Africa, then international. So local user can only work locally. That's why it's called local. And the beauty about local user is that if this particular server loses trust, meaning there's no, you can't validate credential over the network on this system. You need a local user to be able to enter and correct it. So everything you are doing is just local. You are not doing it over the network, even though that system is on the network. Just see it that way. If I'm talking of a local user, my validation is not done over the network. It is done locally. So this local user is just like your laptop. You have your laptop, you connect to it. You know, if you have your password to your laptop, you don't need to be on the internet to log on to it. Do you understand? So just like you have a Microsoft account, You need internet for you to validate you and say, okay, this is his account, this account is known. But locally, you don't need internet, you don't need network. It's just local to that system. But if he's not a domain user, you cannot be validated except you go over the network.
Okay, if for instance now, let's say I have like 4 servers and I create a local user by name, let's say Alex, as we said here, and I make him to like have a domain, like part of a domain, which means he can be able to access all these 4 servers. Then if I don't have a firewall rule, that means this Alex can log into this server and maybe he has maybe an admin rule, which means he can do anything on this server and he's not allowed in terms of security wise. So can I create a firewall rule that can restrict him from accessing social server?
There's something called group policy. So group policy is to administer. It's just you are creating rules, just like you say firewall. So you are creating rules. I'm saying, how do I want all the PCs, all the devices on my network to behave? So you can say that only domain administrator can make changes to laptops, to desktops, to computers on the network. You get, so if you have created Alex locally on this system, Alex is not a domain administrator. He will not be able to make any change. The only thing he can just do is to log on to the system and check his folders and check everything. Like what I did now.
Like a read-only kind of.
You said?
Like a read-only kind of like, he cannot make any changes.
You can't make any changes. That is if the policy permits it. However, once you are logging on to a domain system as a local user, the global policy, the domain policy overrides, because there's also a local group policy. So understand it. Anything that is local, meaning it is residing on that system, it doesn't go over the network. But anything that is domain means it goes over the network. It has a right over the network. It's administering everything about the network. It's monitoring it and saying, I'm the owner of this network. Before you come in, if I don't allow you, you can't come in. But if it is local means that it's just residing on that system. So because of in the IT field as professionals, especially the infrastructure experts, those of you that are infrastructure engineer, you understand that there could be local users. In fact, in my environment, we don't allow local users. We flag it. You are not allowed to log on with a local user. And if you check, this local user that is talking about is just known to the infrastructure guys. In some organizations, because of privileged access management, they don't even share it. It's only set of people that are allowed to use it. You get, it's not everybody that is known. Nobody knows it. It's just, if you're not in that particular team, you can't know it. Let's say in sysadmin team. If you're not in sysadmin team, you can't use it. If you are caught using it, well, you explain where you got the credentials, and you might even be fired. They are trying to unauthorized use of what is not yours. We can always talk on this, just so that we can cover a lot.
Sorry, can I ask a question? Can I ask a question? You mentioned about privilege access management, PCPM, that's PAM. Can you just brief me on that? That's my one question. Number two, sorry, I worked in an organization before where I was like the IT rep, and I saw this particular situation. Up to now, I couldn't explain it. So, as at the time, my boss left the company, and nobody could use the system, nobody could access the system. Me as what I did was I logged in as a local administrator into this system, and now gave my let's say like my own account, my own company account, right? Local user on that system, just on that system, but yet I was not able to sign in. I couldn't really explain, but I don't know if you can explain to me that scenario, because I just remembered it and I was like, how does this entail? Because I heard you saying something about local policies and group policy, as in global policy.
Am I allowed to talk? I don't want to take over your class.
Okay, so
sorry about.
Now, am I permitted, or you want to continue?
You are permitted, but please just within 1 minute so that please we can move on. Yes.
Privilege access management is just like you are managing what you can do. See, privilege. We all have privileges. So you don't want to give. So when you talk about PAM is just that I don't want to give you more than what you require. If you only need to log on to a system to check your email, I will not give you rights to do other things, to join it, to set up a printer, to print and the likes. The only thing I will just do, check your, those of us that you want to share your data, let me check something on your phone. Or don't go to YouTube, or just go and browse. That is privilege. So you're just restricting what the person can do. You're just saying, see, I'm only allowing you to do 1, 2, 3 based on the roles you've been profiled to do on the system. That's privileged access management. For what you experience, I'm sure there's a domain policy that is not allowing you to log on to that system. So what would have happened is you are a domain user, right? How did you log into the system? Did you create an account?
Yeah, I logged into the system using a I use this thing, a local administrator, like local admin, right? So a local admin user on the system. I logged in, then I went to that. I wanted to access. Yes, I wanted to access, some files on that particular system, and also give my boss, the new boss. So if my new boss couldn't sign in, and I thought I could waiver it by logging in, giving myself access, and giving my new boss access to the system, but yet we couldn't log it.
So 2 things, because I guess it would have taken a long while before that system was logged onto. So maybe it has lost trust. If it has lost trust, you can't log into a system that has lost trust, the domain credential. You can only use a local credential to log on to it. So what you would have done is you would have been able to access it, take it up in network.
It wasn't telling me trust. It wasn't giving me trust. That trust domain issue now. It was not giving me that trust, because normally if it was like out of the network.
Take it outside of the class. You can take it
Sorry.
outside.
Let's take it. Let's take it out of the class. So
no
that we
problem.
can just
Sorry, bosses. No problem.
We can achieve what we want to achieve. We have targets for tonight.
Yeah. So again, based on the error message that you get, because I'm sure that your boss would actually get an error message. It can be 1001 reasons. So based on that error message, you know why he's unable to log on to that server. So all right. So thank you, Sheon. And of course, Sheon, is actually in the right position to answer that question, because he has managed, I think, over, Sheon, if I'm not mistaken, GT Bank, I think over 7,000 computers, right?
Yes, correct.
Yep. So Sheon is actually in that right position to answer all your domain-bound questions. Again, thanks a lot, Sheon. Okay, so we'll move on to my other important concepts, another hack, which I call event viewer, right? Now, event viewer is a particular utility that is very, very essential, very, very essential, when, let's say a particular application is not working well as it ought to work, or maybe it's crashing, right? Event viewer can help you to, define or find out where the issue is coming from. And then so many people would have actually abused this, right? Why am I using event viewer? Of course, I'm a professional, but event viewer will give you sort of like an audit of what happened, on the server. So how do we get to event viewer? Right? Again, go to your start, then you just sit here staring at you, event viewer. Just click on it, right? And then under window logs, right, you would see I think 5 sub menu. There's application security setup, system, and forwarded event. So application here just gives you basic information about the applications running. For example, let's say maybe there's a crash somewhere, right? You are now able to see it, based on all of this information. So pretty straightforward. I'm looking at maybe like an error. Let me see if I can get an error. Okay? It shows that my server is working functional. There's no any error anywhere. But once you see an error, just click on it, and then you can now get the information that you need, from here, right? Second one is security. So security is just more like, an audit profile or an audit information of who is doing what account is doing what, like on the server itself. For example, if I should log in and out, right, it's going to log over here, right? So that the way Mr. Alex logged in and out, I'm sure if I should search well, I'm going to see that access over here. So again, it will just tell you all of those information that I need. Very, very important when it comes to troubleshooting. In fact, this is like the first place I come to when I want to troubleshoot. When users are complaining that, okay, I cannot access an application, but application is running. Why is it not, giving me what I want? Just come to Event Viewer and is able to, give you whatever that you need here. So you can see audit success. You can see what I was saying. You can see Mr. Alex. Right, an account was logged off. So it's going to tell you, what happened. Do you understand? So you can see what I was saying, right? It's going to tell you the person that logged in, the account name, the account domain. Because again, this is a local account. That is why it's reporting as test2. But peradventure, I joined this server to a domain, right? You see the name of this server dot the domain name, right? So that does all under security. Then setup, but this is not really work. You can also still go through it, but the important ones are application, security, and then system. So system will just give you, system related information, device setup manager, identity stop state, just kernel information. Again, Sean was talking about kernel the last time, right? So this is going to give you, information about, different systems on the server itself. So let's go to another hack. Another hack has to do with the firewall. I think someone was talking about firewall the other time. So firewall are just like the gate man, a gate man that would always stand at the door to make sure that unauthorized user do not get into the domain. So okay, so I think someone also pasted AAA. So AAA is another protocol which stands for Authorization, Authentication, and what's the last A? Authorization, Authentication, and can someone remember me the last A? I'm going to know. Accounting, good. Yep. So it means we have brilliant minds here. So AAA is authentication, authorization, and accounting. So basically, it's just a framework used to control who is permitted to use network resources. Do you understand? So again, is who is permitted. That is through authentication. What they are authorized to do. That is authorization. And then capturing of what they have performed, right? That is accounting. So it keeps all of this record, right? So that is what A does. So let's go to firewall. Thanks, one. I don't know who this is. 111. Please, if you are joining, always join with your name, because really I don't know what 111 is or who 111 is. So please always join with your name so that we can know how to appreciate guys. So firewall. How do I get to the firewall? Pretty simple. Go to, okay, Akinfemi. Thank you, Akinfemi. Okay, so just firewall. How do I get to firewall? You can get to firewall, using different means. It's either you go to control panel or just go to your stats over here and type firewall. So firewall is going to open up here, but I won't go through typing. I'll just click on stats and go to control panel. So under control panel, you can see Windows Defender Firewall. So click on the Windows Defender Firewall. Now, it is best practice that whenever you have your server, sitting within the domain, right, make sure that you that your firewall is always on at every particular point in time. Because if your firewall is not on, what you are just saying is, I need anybody to be able to come in. And for example, a rogue user somewhere, because now you have said that you want to turn off the firewall on this server. So what that means is that whenever I want to log into the server now, I log in using RDP, and RDP uses port 389, right? But if I should turn off this firewall, that means a rogue user somewhere in another country can just target this server using this IP address. It will now look for all of the ports that are open by default. By the time it gets a loophole to see that, oh, there's a backdoor somewhere, it just goes through that port 389, which is RDP, and then it logs in and, starts doing stuffs on that server. So it's always good that your firewall is turned on. Now, what now happens is connections that are coming into this server. Let me bring up my board again. Do a new. So this is my server over here, right? This is my server. Firewall has been turned on, meaning this man over here. Oh yes, thanks for the correction. So RDP is port 3389. Sorry, not 389. All right, thanks, Damiloju. Port 3389. Okay, all right. So this is my server over here, right? Firewall has been turned on, and then I have the security guard, here. So, and it's holding a long stick, right? It's holding a long stick. Now, he's using one hand to hold this long stick, and he's using another hand to hold a book somewhere or a list. Now, what is within this list? The list are the permitted ports that have been, permitted on the firewall on this server here. So it's looking at that list. So what that means is that I have someone, let's say I have another guy here, right? And his name is, let's say, Dapo, with IP address of 1.1.1.1. Now, he now wants to log into this server on port 3389, just as Damiloju corrected, 3389, right? Now, this Mr. Firewall, he checks the list. Is this man 11111 on my list? Yes, it's on my list. What are the ports that he has access to? Port 389. And I say, okay, welcome to my kingdom. Now logs onto this server to do whatever he has to do. This is another guy here. Or let's say this same 1111. He now wants to log on to, he now wants to SSH to peradventure another server on, let's say, port 22. This Mr. Man checks it. Okay, is 111 authorized to log on to this server? Yes. Does he have access to port 22? No. It blocks this same guy from accessing port 22. There's another guy over here, right? Let's say his own is 1.1.1.2. Wants to log in. He checks, is Mr. 1.1.1.2 allowed to log on to this server? No, it blocks that connection. So that firewall, right, must have all of these details before it can actually log in to the environment itself. So that takes us again back to here, right? So how do I now configure the firewall rules or the firewall policies? Very simple. Just click on advanced settings over here. Another advanced settings, you can see inbound rules. So inbound rule is saying that I want to create rules for guys that can come inbound. So that's where you now create this rule over here. So inbound rule, you add a new rule, and let's say you want to define ports, like that guy that wants to connect on ports, let's say 3389. You go to next, right? Then TCP again is a TCP connection, right? Then specific ports, I can now put the ports here, 3389. and then click on next, allow connection. So this is where you allow the connection, right? You can also allow it if that connection is secure, right? That is if it's coming over maybe like an IPsec VPN, you allow it, or you also block the connection. So this is where you do all your rules. Then click on next, and then you apply applies when the computer is connected to the public network. So based on based on the incoming environment, right? You can now select whatever you want here, then next, and then give it a name. Let's say incoming rule for, let's say, Alex, right? Then you finish. Once you click on finish, Mr. Alex will now be authorized to come in. So the same thing applies for outbound rules. That is, what are the connections that need to go out of the server, right? So those are part of the outbound rules. So moving on, so I've talked about the firewall. Now, another very important information is patching, right? You need to make sure that your system is up to date when it comes to patching. And how do you get there? Very simple. Again, control panel is your guy, right? Under control panel, I will go to large icons and look for programs and features over here. Click on that. Then here you see view installed updates. Once you click view installed updates, it can now give you, okay, someone is asking, so firewall rule is only for port permissions. Well, it depends. It depends on the server and the environment. There's some other firewall permissions, that is strictly for URL. Do you understand? That will be able to restrict or permit URLs as you want. But for this concept, right, it's just for port permissions. Do you understand? For port permissions based on IP addresses in and out. Okay, so for the patch, right, now you need to make sure that your system is always up to date against vulnerabilities, right? So here you have all the KBs, Microsoft releases patches every second Tuesday of every month. Every second Tuesday of every month. Sure, I think it's second Tuesday or first Tuesday. I think it's second Tuesday, right?
Second Tuesday.
Yes. Yeah, so Microsoft releases patch every second Tuesday of every month. If you don't have a patch manager or an application that can help you to install patches automatically on your systems, right? You can do that manually if you don't have many servers. For example, your organizations can have, yes, I will answer your question. I've seen it. So in an organization, you can have maybe like just 10 servers, right? In that scenario, you can use Ansible to push patches. So a patch is just a document, a patch is just a file that I just need to double click and run. But again, you have to make sure that you are downloading the right patch. I think we have another class for how to be able to find out what patch is suitable for your system. Don't go to the internet and just download that, okay, this is Windows Server 2016. I need to download patch and then install. You break your server. You understand? So that is why two things you can do is either to get a patch manager that would scan your server and then check the packages that you need to install or the packages that needs to be installed, right? It will check it and then go to the internet to download it from Microsoft site. It will not go and download it from Apple site or another external site. It will go straight to Microsoft site to download what it needs. Peradventure, you might not even download anything. It will tell you that according to Microsoft, right, your OS is up to date. Again, secondly is you can also do automatic check. Again, it is not really best practice because what you are doing is you are exposing your server to the internet. So it's always going to the internet to go and download. So again, you will not want to expose your production server as a DevOps practitioner. You don't want to expose your production server to the internet. That is why you need another server that will serve as a proxy that would always go to the internet. It will download the patches or the packages that you need. And then take it to the target servers and install. Again, you can use Ansible to be able to install that remotely. Once we come to all of these configuration management tools, we'll talk about that. So again, you can see that my server is up to date. This is September. In fact, this is September. I have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's the power of Azure, because when I was spinning up this server, right, it made sure, okay, I think I installed the server on the 6th, or I brought up the server on the 6th of August, right? And then it gave me the latest patch. But again, next month, Microsoft will not patch the server. So once you get to cloud, you will know your responsibility as whenever you are deploying, what is it called? IaaS, that is, what is it called again? That is infrastructure as a service. You need to know two things: your role as the owner of the server, and then Azure's role as the provisioner of the server. So Microsoft will not patch this server for you because it is your responsibility. So if you are doing AWS or Azure, they'll tell you your responsibility as the server owner, and then Azure's responsibility. If you just sit there and say, it's on Azure, Microsoft will patch it for me. You are wrong. So again, there are different techniques that you can now inform Microsoft, part of some other functions on Azure that, it should always, download the latest patch for you. Okay, so that is that. These are all of the KBs, meaning I'm protected. So lastly for tonight, we don't look at IaaS. I told you that if you want to install IaaS, you just open your server manager, come to add roles and features, click on next, next, and then you see IaaS here. Just select it, click on next. You click on next, and then you would select the latest .NET framework, because without this .NET framework, IaaS will not run. So select it and then install. But I've already done that. So once you install this IaaS, so IaaS is just a web server, right? A web server that helps you to be able to launch your application. You know that when I started, I was saying that package needs to run on the server. So it will not just come to this server and start running. It needs like an enabling environment called a web server, to be able to run. So that package is just a zip file that contains everything that has been built for it to be able to run automatically. Now, this IaaS, right, it has a directory under C drive, say that your package has gotten to this target server. My IaaS is running. How do I deploy it? Where is the path to deploy it? Again, it's on C drive. So I'm just giving you like an expo to your assignments, because on a normal day, I ought not to be showing you this, but again, I'll just show you. So you need to go and do more in your various groups to deploy a web application and then install certificates on that application. So this is the directory, inetpub on C drive. You go into inetpub, you see another directory called www-root. Go into that, and I've been able to get an application somewhere, and this is my application. You can see in this application, it's a web application, really. It has CSS, fonts, image, about. So this is just the web application that the developer, I'm not the person that wrote this code. The developer is saying that, Mr. DevOps engineer, Mr. DevOps practitioner, this is what I have written. You need to deploy this on any environments. I don't care the environments that you want to deploy it to, but just make sure that this application run. I can decide to host this on Docker. As time goes on, we'll show you how to be able to host applications on Docker containers, on Kubernetes. I can also decide to host this on Azure. I can decide to host this on app services. Those are serverless services on Azure, right? Decide to host it anywhere. There are several places where you can host, but we're going to host on I. So this is the directory here. I can just change this name to maybe like Let me just give it a funky name. Then I can give it DAS. So this is like a funky name, right? So this is the package that's passed through the CI/CD pipeline, has been scanned, and there's no vulnerability. Please, whenever there's a vulnerability within your application, make sure that it doesn't go to production. Those are part of the functions of a good DevOps practitioner. Okay, all right. Now, next, I want to host this application. What do? I just go to start, just search for IIS. Yeah, so click on IIS. And now once this opens, again, this is your assignment. I will not go through all of the basics of IIS, but because I want to just host our DAS application, right? I would click on this drop down over here, and then you see sites. So under sites, you can right click and then add a website. So you can name it DAS. Physical part is that folder, that DAS folder that we have here. Just go to C drive, inetpub, www.root, then DAS. Select it. And okay, so let me just host it on port 8080. Right. You can host it on any port that is not currently running. You can host it on any port that is not currently running on the environment. And how do you know if a port is not running on the environment? You just go to CMD and where's the command? Just type netstats. You can see it will tell you the ports that are running and that are established. So you can see that my port 8080 is not running. So on a server, you can have several ports that are opened, right? So again, very important so that you don't assign a port that is already, in use by an application. Okay, so moving on, I want to give it port 8080. Now, host name is, when I was talking about DNS, right? If I should save this like this, right, and go to local hosts on port 8080, it's going to come up. But again, I don't want to use local hosts, but let us leave it blank. You can leave it blank and just click on OK. So once I click on OK, that is all. Like, I'm done. So I don't need to browse on port 8080. And you can see my application here sitting beautifully. That's all. You can see the about us I was talking about, projects, blog, and what have you. So now this is not best practice. Local hosts. If you have, there's something we call a domain name, right? You register your domain name, maybe like with the on your DNS, on your enterprise DNS server, right? Now you need to give the IP address of this server to the administrator, or you as the domain administrator, right? Just give this server name, this server IP, give it to the administrator, and then now tell the person that, please, I need you to create, I don't like this local host. I need to give it a funky name, maybe daas.uk or daas.anything. It will now have to create that record on DNS so that whenever you enter whenever you enter that IP address of this server, right, it's going to translate to that daas.ng. So how do we do that on this server? Again, locally, you can do that locally by creating what we call, creating the name on a file called host file, which I'm going to show you now. So what that means is that I'll go back to IIS and right-click to bindings. So I will edit the binding, and then let's say I want to give it the name, maybe daas. What name can we give it? Daas. Let's say UK. Right. So I want to give it the host name daas.uk. Copy. Click on OK. Close. Now, if I should just go to the URL and type daas.uk here, it will not work because this guy is going to be confused. what is daas.uk? We can try it. Okay, but before then, let me restart the IIS. So again, you can restart your IIS service here. Just click on restart. It's going to restart all of the websites here based on the changes that you've made. So going back to this guy, and I replace this with daas.uk. It won't go through because this guy is confused. What is daas.uk? It will try and fail. Like, what is daas.uk? Like, I'm confused. Someone help me. You understand? So this will keep rolling like this till infinity. And then at the end of the day, it won't go anywhere. So what do I have to do? I need to inform this server. You can see it has failed. I need to inform this server that for you to get to this daas.uk, right? The only IP address, local, again, you know that your local hosts, your local host address is 127.0.0.1. That is here. If I should just come here and just type localhost, port 8080, you can see I can still replace this local host and type 127.0.0.1. Okay, let me see. Yep. Okay, so now let us leave it at local hosts. Let's leave it at local host because again, that's 127.0.0.1. The server again does not know how to get straight to it, but it only knows what localhost is. But how do we now change that behavior? How do we tell the server that I want to replace that localhost with daas.uk? How do I do that? You do that on the host file. Again, the host file is always under C drive, Windows, system, I think system 32. Yeah. Yep, system 32. Then you go to drivers, etc. And this is where you have the host file. Again, you need to open this host file as an administrator. And how do you do that? You need to open this host file to edit it as an administrator. So just copy the part over here, right? Then go to Notepad, click on Notepad and run as administrator. So once you have run this Notepad as administrator, you go to File and then Open. Then you go to the part that I just copied, right? You won't see anything here because this guy does not understand anything that is here, right? There's a drop down over here. Click on All Files, then select the hosts and click on Open. So what do we have here? Now you can see that when I typed 127.0.0.1, it didn't go through because this pound sign that you have here is it has commented this line out. So if I should remove this pound sign and then click on save, if I should restart, if I should refresh that page, it's going to show up. But that is not the goal here. The goal here is that my daas.uk. So what I don't need to do is I'm saying my daas, sorry, my 127 dots, or you can still put it as daas.uk. Save it. And refresh. Okay, I need to restart this guy. Okay, let me just check this host file again. Okay, sorry. This should be 127.0.0.1. .uk. Save this guy. Run this guy again. Let's see. Okay, am I missing something? Oh, okay. for a minute, I thought I was missing something. So again, once you make changes within your host file, right, it takes like a minute or two for it to reflect. Do you understand? So that's what you can see over here. daas.uk has been created, within the host file here. Do you understand? To 127.0.0.1. That's why if I should refresh this guy, it will always open because I've created this file. Do you understand? We need this host file over here. So if I should use 127.0.0.1, it will still open, right? But because I don't want to always remember this IP address, I've now translated it to daas.uk, which I have here. You understand? And then I can go through the different contact, the different blog I have on this website. And that brings us to the end of the class. So if you have any question, kindly, so we'll take only 2 questions again because of our time. So now the assignment is, so create an IIS server within your group, just like I've done here. Create an IIS server, right? Deploy an application on that server. I can send you the zip file of my own application, deploy it, right? But this is not best practice. You can see that my site is not secure. So create a certificate, right? Bind it to IIS so that what we now want to see, on the,
Let everybody get a different application. So we want to see the uniqueness.
Yes. So please get a unique application, right? Get a unique application. It can be any web application, right? So please get that application, get a certificate, and then install it so that at the end of the day, once you are presenting, we want to see secure over here. Because again, this is not secured. That is why you are seeing this sign here. So as a good DevOps practitioner, you want to make sure that you have valid certificates, showing over here.
Are we getting a self-signed certificate or?
It could be a self-signed.
That's the question I wanted to ask you.
Yes.
Boss, I have a question. Sorry, guys. I actually did a self-signed certificate from I've done the lab. I got a self-signed certificate. I added it to the server, but yet it was showing not secured. I opened it on Internet Explorer, and just did HTTPS, and it went through. But at that icon, it was still telling me that it was still showing me like
what group are you? What group are you?
I mean, Group Agile.
Group Agile now. Oh yeah, now.
Yes.
That is why you are in a group. So you guys should meet and troubleshoot it.
Yeah, definitely. I want more
exactly.
thing, there's this thing I did for the host file. I didn't use 127.0.0.1.
Okay.
I actually used my Ethernet IP on my virtual box. Yeah, and it still went through.
Of course, yeah, sure.
Maybe that could be the issue. But I did the whole steps, did the binding, did everything, but I added the certificate, but it still shows not secured. But it showed that my certificate was installed. because once you click on that place, it shows the certificate was installed, but it's now telling me that that certificate is not from a trusted CA. It's not from a trusted certificate provider.
There are free providers online that can even give me like a month. Do you understand?
The issue now on that is this: we can't verify those ones to get the certificate, because at the point it will need you to verify your domain.
It will need you to verify your domain, because the one I did because you go to that IIS tool, and like on the right hand side, you see create self-signed certificates. The one I created from there was giving me that is not from a trusted CA. So I don't know. I wanted you to
it's an assignment for you. I won't tell you how you need to resolve that. Really, I know what the issue is. I know how to resolve it. But then that is why you guys are in a group. Go and troubleshoot, please. Please go and troubleshoot and find out how to be able to bind the certificates. I will do it for you here within 2 minutes. I will show you how to do it, but then I don't want to do it. So that is why you guys are within the group. Go and troubleshoot, find out and check how it's done. Right? Does that answer your question?
Partially, you're not satisfactory.
Someone is saying, please kindly touch certificate installation before you sign off. I'm not touching certificates. No, I am not touching certificate installation. I'm not touching certificate installation. I'm sorry. If you guys want to buy a certificate, you can purchase a certificate. Just call it maybe daas.ng.com. You guys you are how many in the group? You're like 14 now.
Can we get a free domain? Because I know we can get a free domain, maybe a free number or something like that. Can we get a free domain? Then we can use that free domain to get a free certificate, which we can use.
A domain is, you can buy a domain for 2 months.
Look,
that is why I want you guys to brainstorm. You can buy a free domain, right? Get a free domain on Google Host. It's not expensive. I think it's 2,000 naira per month. Get a free domain.
Get free.
Get a certificate and then bind it. So I don't know, Sheon, when are they presenting to you? On that day, I want to see HTTPS, right, secured, and then we'll move on from there. Sheon, when are they presenting to you?
I think we normally do Friday, right?
Friday night. Tomorrow is Friday.
Or do we do on a Sunday so that they won't?
Oh, Sunday night, Abby.
No, tomorrow is not possible. Because last time we did it on a Saturday night.
Saturday night.
You don't have time to cry. You will have done this thing yesterday. But because it has been shifted to today, so let's do it on Sunday night, I beg.
Let's do it on Sunday night. Let's do it on Sunday night. It won't take time, just 10 minutes per
Sunday night is okay.
All right, thank you.
Too much talk.
Thank you. I'm not going to tell you how to do that. That's why it's an assignment for you. So please, do you have any other question again so that we can call it a night? But I hope you guys enjoyed the class though.
Shared a static web page can serve, because this is your notification kind of web page. We don't have that type of.
What did you say?
Look for template online now. I went to his HTML/CSS. Look for
I said a static web page can serve.
There are